Hey, YouTube. Welcome, welcome. We've got some low light today. And maybe I can put on this light. Does that help? A little bit. We'll deal with it. Looks a little bit better. All right, let's bring our friends' Instagram on. Okay, let me get them propped up. I hang it on my laptop. Okay, good. Sound's working. I had to stop and restart. And I think that looks good for that, but it doesn't look good for, yeah, we'll do that. Doesn't look good for my hair, but you know what? We're just gonna go with it. We're not gonna trip on these little things. It's just a waste. That's decent. I just have to look like presentable, right? Is that fair? Is that fair? That's the point. Welcome, clutter-free family. Welcome to the Clarity Hotline. I will tell you this, Instagram, if you're on YouTube with me, you get some of the preamble before we go live. So my YouTube fam has to deal with it. And if you like that sort of thing, then meet me over on YouTube. But anyway, do I look as tired as I feel? That's the question for today. Because, you know, I got my coffee. It's not tea. Today, it's caffeine. Because normally, I think tea doesn't serve me like coffee does to wake me up. Not that I use coffee to wake me up. It's a kind of a ritual. I guess it does wake me up sensorially, you know, and like, it's just like it's part of a ritual that I like to include every now and again. Whenever somebody makes it for me. And it's because you know, if I'm making it myself, it's not necessarily as good. And, you know, and I don't like the real sweet stuff, but I do like a good latte. Anywho, let's do this, shall we? Let me get my questions here, let you guys in on that. That'd be helpful. Oh, nice. Ooh. Oh, I just learned something really cool. I've got my two images. We're just making this work. We are making this work. I got my two images because I reduced the size of the window. And now I can see both Instagram and YouTube on this side of my screen, and my notes are on this side. Wow. And I know everyone, you get the glare in these glasses. That's just it, you know, it just is how it's going to be right now. You can just cover me and just listen if you know, if that matters to you. Okay, so let's talk. I think we got a lot to talk about. We've got a few questions, and one is, I'll sum it up like this. Why am I so tired? That's a couple of questions that came in. I'll give you some backstory on that. And then what's my best advice as a coach? And that came from another coach in my circle. And I really appreciated that question because it made me think. And so in having to answer her, I wanted to answer it for you guys. My best advice as a coach. And then this question was so similar to a lot of other questions that have to do with mental load that I've answered before. And so I just want to circle back on some of the mental load questions, and probably in the description point you to a few other videos on that, if that helps. But I do have a question about the mental load, but I kind of want to sum it up. If you don't know what the mental load is, it's a buzzword for, you know, what's happening with moms nowadays, especially in our overstimulated world. There's just a lot to account for as parents, as mothers especially, because there's the cognitive, the emotional, the physical. I mean, it's labor, right? It's laborious to be a mother on several levels. So that is the mental load. That's how I would define the mental load. And so I'm just going to pull together kind of this, just a little bit of an overview on mental load in a way that I'm capturing kind of all the questions that have come in about mental load, be it comments on my mental load videos, my mental load reels, my mental load blog posts or emails. I think I've written or talked about mental load for, I mean, at least a year now, because before that, I didn't know what it was. Before that, I didn't really know that that was happening to me, you know? And when you start to talk about something and share it with people, you realize, oh, wow, I'm not alone. I'm not alone on that. And it's a thing, and people are experiencing it constantly. And what do we do? What do we do? And so anyway, I have an interesting take on that, but let's be here now. Let's arrive together to this space wherever that is for you. I've got beautiful birds chirping outside. It's a beautiful sunny day here. And whatever that is for you, whatever you're finding as far as being beautiful in your surroundings, just tap into that. If you can, close your eyes. Take a big breath in. I like to take it in through the nose and then let it out through the mouth. I always like to take a quick inhale, maybe 4 seconds in, and then a longer exhale out. And there is a quick in and out method in pranayama, which is very appropriate at times. This is just a nice little quick anxiety relief. Shake the tension off. And even like moving your body and actually coming into the space and like, settling in like you would, cuddle on the couch and get cozy on the couch for a movie. Think of it like that too. You're kind of, okay, getting into the space, doing a little, little breath. So like, yeah, okay, I'm here. That really is not just, man, I wish I had all my words together today. It's not just for show. What is that word? It's really cool. I wanted to use it. Anyway, it's not just for looks, right? That we're like, if you really allowed yourself to arrive into a space and get comfortable in it, get acclimated to it, then, your experience in that space would be a lot different. So think about that when you go in for an interview. Big inhale, big exhale. We're still on the breath, guys. I just like to, talk your ear off while you're breathing. Breathing in, 4 counts, breathing out. And then do that for as many times as necessary. And then return to your normal breath as long as it feels like you're ready to. Because honestly, I'll keep doing that until I feel either better in my body, breathe until I feel looser, lighter, leaner kind of a thing, more nimble, or it's enough space and time to allow me to see what I should be doing. Moving my body more, getting out and exercising, going out for a walk, having a good cry, having a good scream, journal, call home, call my mom. So, stuff like that. It's or call a friend, or watch something because you just need to get, out. You just need to shake things up in your head. I would say that is what that's for. And kind of listening to that impulse, that response, listening to that and letting it take you to where you need to be. That is really, really cool. So let that work for you. Let that serve you. The breath. I feel like there is a book called Breath. There's so much to talk about when it comes to breath that you could write a book on it, and someone did. Okay. question number one. So why am I so tired? Let me tell you the backstory on that. So I'm running a little survey right now with my fellow mompreneurs, entrepreneur moms, and I'm getting some intel as we kind of share our stories of motherhood and entrepreneurship. And one of the questions, I'll let you in on it because it's all confidential. I'll never share names. I'll never attach, a response to a person. It's all confidential. So consider, as soon as you say it, as soon as you let me in on the answer to the question on the survey, consider it, anonymous. So anyway, the first question is on that survey, and I'll let you in on that right now. What's your biggest challenge or frustration when it comes to being a mom and an entrepreneur? What's your biggest challenge or frustration? And immediately, I mean, really with no pause. There might be some pauses. Some people, wondering about like what is the biggest. There have been some pauses, and I think that's cool, right? Because sometimes you want to just chalk it up to one thing, but if you pause, you kind of know like, okay, well, I've got a couple things going on and I can see why, the challenge to pinpoint exactly where the frustration comes as it relates to you being mother and entrepreneur, the dual role of it, maybe the toggle between it, the balance, right, that you need to strike between the two roles. That is, kind of what I'm targeting. And I recognize that, you might need a second to think about that, because it's not just about being a mother, not just about being an entrepreneur, but the through line between the two. And the answer that comes up most often is time management. Time management. If you're on with me, I'd love if you commented your answer to this, your biggest challenge or frustration when it comes to you being mother and entrepreneur. And that's a big one, because what I'm doing, why I'm asking these questions and going down this rabbit hole with moms is because I want to come up with a solution, a resource, something that I could provide or be the host of, so that us mothers, we mothers, have a resource that kind of meets us where we're at when it comes to that. From everything from identity shift to, how to operate in your business and be profitable, and how to manage your time, things like that. This is all stuff that comes up. And so, yeah, time management is a big one, because, you're going back and forth between roles, mother and entrepreneur. So you're running things right in the house, and then you're running things in your business. And at any point, it feels like those are running you and you are not running them. And I think that is when it feels like time management would be the biggest frustration. I think really anything, anything would fit the bill there. But when it comes to like preparing a resource, I've already started work on something that I'm giving as a gift to those who survey with me. And it's called the Presence and Profit Playbook. And it really does dive into a little bit of what I'm hearing from them. And I just want to give a quick win. I want to say thank you to all my entrepreneur moms who are coming in and talking to me about this and being so vulnerable and honest and raw. I really, really appreciate it. So immediately it was on my spirit to be like, I want to give them something, help, because as I'm in these calls, I'm thinking, oh man, okay, well, if only she knew that this, and that's kind of what I'm summing up in this playbook for them. So anyway, all that to say that it does come about that somebody's asking me, why am I so tired? Like, if that's the issue, why am I so tired? And that is a loaded question. And no wonder we have a mental load. Anyway, so that's a loaded question, because time management, in my opinion, is so many things, because time is relative, right? Time is relative. It's just an illusion. It is what we make it. And we've come to rely on it, just as we do money, as the form of communication and currency and value, right? So we've come to terms and in agreement on the fact that time is this, right? We only have so many hours in a day. Some of that we're sleeping, some of that we're working, some of that we're eating, talking in conversation with people. And so you're only left with what, 2 to 3 hours where you maybe can fill it with what you want to do, what your own agenda, especially as a mother, like that just capsizes those 2 hours. It's like, when is the time for your own agenda, as we call it, me time. And I think when you factor all that in, when you factor life as it is in, you realize time management, just like the management of any other variable in your life that's stressful, comes down to so many things. It's influence management. It, like, who's influencing you, right? What do you think about time? If you hung out with people who didn't care about time, then you wouldn't care about time, and you'd find a way to fit in with the people who don't care about time, because that feels like home for you. And so it might not look like you having a job that you clock in and clock out of. It might not look like, you scheduling things or making many plans, because then that would adhere you to a calendar and a clock and, being on time and not being a flaky friend. So, that's a lifestyle. And then there's the lifestyle where, type A, super on time, punctual, and everything is boop, boop, tip top shape. Then that's going to look different. That's influence, right? That's commonality, that's community. So those are like your circle of influence, right? And then there's like the opinions therein that you share, behavior management. So like your behavior, your habits, managing that, all boil down to time management, all factor into how you manage your time, because all of that factors into how you manage your thoughts. And I believe time management is thought management. And it's just managing of the mind more so than anything. I know a lot of people will say, it's not about time management, it's about self-management. And yeah, they're onto something with that, because self is so many things, right? How we're operating in this world, what we believe about us and our place in the world. It's our belief systems, all factor in how we treat time and what we do with it and what we think is the best use of our time. Okay, so at any point, in any minute, at any moment, we are making that decision. What is the best use of my time? And sometimes it might look like being lazy. And that, in your opinion, is the best use of your time for that time. Now, if you start to just kind of stay being lazy all day, every day, then, that there's a conversation in your mind happening as to why this is a good use of your time to be, and it could boil down to something as simple as, well, I'm useless everywhere else. Where do I belong? Like, I might as well not even exist. See how the things start to really pile up, and it's all about these thoughts that keep us in these stories that tell us how to use our time. So try putting that into a playbook. I'm putting try helping these entrepreneur moms manage their time better, because ultimately that's the beginning of things. But here's the good news, right? The same amount of time and energy and investment of capital and resources that you put toward managing your diet is the same amount of time, energy, effort, resources that you're going to have to put into managing your calendar or your what else do people think about? Diet, fitness. Um, I don't know. It throws some at me if you could think of something, but like that same energy that you're putting toward that one area of your life, it's the same amount of work. So think about that. Like if you know that it took this much effort to start to lose weight, then you're going to equate that to the amount of effort it would take to kind of overhaul anything else in your life, decluttering your house. And that's a lot of work. So you're thinking, I got to do all this, and then I got to do it again for this, and then I got to do it again for that, just to get my life in order, just to get my life on track, to get my life. It would take all that. That is why we're so tired, because we're thinking about the work it requires to be on top of it all. Because we stepped back. I was going to say we haven't, but a lot of times we are. We're stepping back and we're kind of taking it in, and we're saying, this is a lot. This is a lot. And I've got to let some stuff go. And so we do. We let a lot go. We let a lot of things slip through the cracks, because my main focus is keeping these kids alive, putting food on the table, having some semblance of an enjoyable life. So making sure I'm not completely falling apart. I'm spending time on me too. It's kind of like all the balancing of that, right? So the good thing about that, and I'll get to the good part, instead of stacking the effort it takes for all those things separately as though they are separate, even though they're all part of you, imagine if you worked on your mind, right? Managing your thoughts about time, money, calories, weight, things like that, because it all boils down to ultimately our perspective on life, what's happening in our bodies at any given point, and what we think about it, what it's showing us, what it's telling us. All of that is subject to interpretation, your interpretation. So if somebody says, yes, time management is self-management, then yeah, self-management being you taking care of the whole self, you as a whole person, right? So anyway, because I'm going to skip ahead on that question about the mental load and just sum it up. So the question would be, it ranges from anywhere to, what is the mental load? How do I manage the mental load? How do I lighten my mental load? See how they're all the same. Scientifically, I do want to let you in on a little secret. Scientifically, what's been studied, our bandwidth and our capacity, so our mental capacity, our bandwidth, right? Our ability to process, do, execute all of the things, right? At any given time. It's kind of like our central processing unit in a computer. It's that's churning constantly, right? So that is our bandwidth, that's our capacity, and our mental load is effectively just, the weight on it, the busyness of our capacity and our bandwidth. So why it's really a load, it's because it is heavy, right? You're thinking for more than just yourself. You're thinking for two or however many kids you have. You're thinking for your living, making sure you're well in order to parent, and making sure they're well in order to live. You want to see them live and thrive and reach their fullest potential and live a long life, right? So you're living for two. You are eating for two, right? You're thinking about what goes into your body as well as in theirs. And, this is all happening, right? And so notice, if your bandwidth didn't grow just because you had kids, everything inside has to be repositioned, rearranged, reallocated. Time has to be allotted differently, because you didn't grow more capacity, but you did grow more responsibility. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? And I think, we face in postpartum years, the struggle of, depression, depletion, identity crisis, emotional burnout, physical burnout, just being your body just being really tired, because that's a lot of work. There's a lot going on that we have yet to adjust to. And being honest from the start there, is something we don't always know that we have to do, right? Take the time and be honest with, oh, wow, this just happened to me. I birthed a human that now I'm responsible for 24/7. And I literally am feeding this child until, for at least 6 months and with my milk, right? And so I want to be healthy. And so all of this stuff. And then that grows into the concerns of a crawler and a walker and a toddler and a kindergartner and a tween and a teen and you know, driving cars and going off on their own to people's houses that you don't know. And then going to college. That's a thing. Graduating college. What next? Are you back home? Or are you out and about and traveling the world? What are you doing? This is all, it never goes away. So the reallocating of how you spend your time has to be accounted for. Like, you've got to give it time and space, because we don't grow in capacity, don't grow in our bandwidth. We only become more efficient with what's processing inside, right? So since we are, in a way, fish out of water here as new moms, only certain things, as we grow in consistency, we're exposed to on a continuous basis. For instance, feeding the child, do you start to get more efficient and better about planning for it, and it becomes a habit, almost like clockwork. Like, I know around this part of the day he's going to need this, around this part of the day he's going to need that, around this part of the day he's going to do this, around this part of the day he's going to do that. And so things start to become more efficient. And then the degree to which those things change are just slight, right? As they're kind of growing. Granted, it's a lot, and it's fast, it's quick, but the changes, if you're attuned and present and involved, really involved parent, you're going to see that, the shifts are slight. And however else, aside from being mother, you're using your bandwidth and your capacity will determine how available to those moments you are, those slight shifts, to be present with, to offer up, support with, and be a guide, just be a hug for them when they need it, that kind of thing. It's like, that's going to be determined by kind of what else you're doing within the capacity that you have to function as mother. And so, since we're all mother, and we want to spend some time thinking about her, or spend some time just being with, I hate to always say think about, because I know we get stuck in our heads, and that's the mental load. We're operating at a 10 at all times, as far as, worrying about them. There's a part of us that's eaten away by worry, making sure that they are safe and cared for and they're in reliable hands. And, they would call me if something's happening. So that's always kind of a constant little soundtrack in the background. But then you got to factor in the weight, the toll it takes to be mother. Now we're entrepreneur. So, okay, well, now what is the capacity? What percentage of my bandwidth can I give to entrepreneur and operate as my founder self, as my CEO self? And so that's a lot of balance, right? We're constantly, so is time management about balance management? It's about finding the balance, understanding this capacity and the piece of the pie that you're delivering, or you're allocating to all the things that make you you and whole, that you need to give that time, right? Like, all of this is important. And the good thing about that is, we make into habits things that are happening continually and often and all that good stuff. So we make into habits those things. But the thing is if we're not present and aware of what we're turning into habits, they can quickly feel like unhealthy habits, because we let pass, or we let things go, and they happen so frequently that it's now just habitual. It's the energy in your home. It's the way you show up every day, the way you wake up tired. It's the It's the way you rush off to work. It's the feeling that you're now just accustomed to because you let it go on for so long without checking in and saying, how does this feel? And do I like it? And do I want to change it? And what does that mean for everything else in my life if I spend time here changing it? See how we can get real quick, and talk about like not having the cognitive, emotional, physical space to do it all. But that's just what it takes. The good thing is there's still more good news. Trust me, there's still more good news. The more enlightened to that we become, the easier this all is. The easier life is, because the I like to say, like, we're self-conscious beings only because we have this ego that we have to die to every day. So we have our ego, and the mental load is heavy. It's all heavy. The weight of the world is on our shoulders with the news and what's happening in the news. It's awful, and people are dying, and people are getting sick, and cancer sucks, and all this stuff, right? Well, it's like this problem, this cloud, this gloom that just hovers over us, and we think that we're under it, right? That we can't get over it. And if we believe that we can't get over it, we can't get over it. And so we stay under it, stuck under it. And that feels like shame and isolation and humiliation and all things of the ego, all things that if we were lighter with it all, if we weren't so worried about being humiliated or annihilated, which are the two fears of the ego, then things would be so much easier. But we are concerned about, I don't know, nobody's being canceled anymore, right? We learned that was a big problem to cancel people, okay, on their emotional well-being. Okay. So we're not canceling people anymore, but we are, people are still bullying. People are still feeling humiliated, maybe being the person who's bullied, or they're being humiliated as the bully. People are still feeling disease. We're feeling disease, and we're getting sick. We're still getting, our bodies are still getting sick. What else? We're still aging. We're still learning and growing and taking classes and being a student. And so everything just starts to feel heavy, like, right? It's kind of us against the world. It's me versus them. And comparing ourselves, that's all going to also factor into how heavy the mental load is and how overstimulated our capacity is, just taking all of that in. And so this is a good time to bring in the next question, my best advice as a coach. So my best advice as a coach is that, and this is for me working with entrepreneur moms primarily. I work with entrepreneurs, not just entrepreneur moms, but I'm particularly fond of entrepreneur moms right now because this is where the work needs to go. This is where I need to be right now. I need to connect with moms right now and let them know we got this, we can do this. And so, but in a way that's really lightening the mental load. Okay, so that's the tie-in. And so this will make sense when I tell you this, especially working with entrepreneurs. But my best advice as a coach is that your 1.0 fits in the world. Your 1.0 version, your first draft of something fits in the world. And I know we so often, and I hope that's healing for some people to hear that, because if you're fighting against creative blocks, or you're feeling stuck in the process of building this business, trying to grow it, then that gets lost, right? We kind of like lose sight of the point of us in the work. So we're struggling with creative blocks or feeling like, oh, there's just too much to do. How am I going to do it? And then getting on ourselves about the capacity aspect. Well, I only have so much time in the day. You're constantly being interrupted. There's never a full, few hours where there's not something kind of interrupting you as a mom, be it a thought or a call from the school or whatever. And so, time is not your own. You're sharing this capacity with other people that you love. But that can trip us up when it comes to just executing and trusting ourselves that this will take you trusting yourself and you being led from within and knowing that you matter, right? What you bring to the table is wanted in this world. If you just led with that, then you would see all of this just unfold before your eyes. But we worry, we stress about money, we stress about time, we stress about competition, and all of that will have you stuck to where you're not. And I think the work, right? The work behind it's like, well, I've got to save, I've got to reserve some of my capacity because I can't be this like totally running on fumes mom when I pick the kids up. Like, I've got to recognize that I still have to be mom later. So we do have to consider that we can't just go like drive ourselves into the ground on one thing or the other. We need to keep the balance, keep the space for both things. Because at any point we could be kind of called to arms and like have to rise to the challenge. Now, adrenaline comes in and we always got what we need. We are always provided for, right? Whenever we need to step up. But it's in the lull and the questioning, the second guessing, the doubting that all of this starts to take place. The feeling stuck, the not wanting to execute on your creative ideas or feeling overloaded by your creative ideas. All because you don't know how to allocate them into your new life as mom and, arrange things so that everything gets its fair share of your capacity on a given day. And so why I say that my best advice as a coach is your version 1.0 fits in the world is because anything you put out, if you're open for business, even though the first thing you should be worried about when you start something before it's even a business, I guess, is really like start to just talk to people, form a community around your idea. But when you start to just talk and see who's listening, the people who need to hear that version 1.0 of your message and your truth and your honesty and vulnerability is who will see it. So trust that the people who are seeing your version, your first draft, are the ones who need to see it. The ones who maybe you are nervous that they'll see it because maybe you're not there yet. You want it to be version 24.0 before, that caliber of customer sees your stuff. Just know that you still needed to have version 1.0 to get to 24.0. And so I hope this is a way, like a pep talk for you to just put it out. Just put out what you want in the world, out into the world, because the first person you need to sell is you. And you're talking to yourself. And I've never looked at it that way until I read Russell Brunson's book, Expert Secrets. Excellent book. And he was talking about how, it's an older book, but he was talking about how like your blog, you start to blog and nobody's listening, nobody's reading it, but you're writing for you. And I agree. Like, I see it now, just even as I'm working with clients and seeing them struggle with that idea of starting, right? Because we want it to be version 24 already, but we still need version 1.0. We need to be bought in on the story, right? And how this is unfolding. And you're your first customer. That's another thing people say is you're your first customer, because you need to be bought in on this idea. And if you're not bought in yet and there is some struggle, then you're not fully bought in on it. And there's some hesitation on even the business model that you have in store for yourself. You're not even sure you want to do that. And so my suggestion with especially entrepreneur moms who don't have a lot of time on their hands, they are kind of in this kind of ramp up period, especially if they have littles at home. They're in this ramp up where version 24 is going to happen. It may not happen all on your back, though. It may not only be you that's helping you get to version 24. But right now, as a solo entrepreneur, your version 1.0 matters because this is the foundation that's starting to grow and get iterated upon. And if you don't first buy in yourself and just put yourself into your work as much as, humanly, physically possible, like put yourself into your work, that is what spawns the whole enterprise. Like this is what it's birthed from there. And I wrote something too where I said, the first drafts are courageous because you're finding the courage to spend the time to do it. Whatever it is, it could be the first draft of your book, the first draft of your masterpiece, a drawing that you have inside of you that you really want to get out, a painting, an account, a new social account, like, and I want it to be about this. And, that first kind of push is courageous. You're digging deep from within and finding the courage to be vulnerable about this thing. So important, right? That's important. We can agree that's important. And then it's also, your first draft is creative. It's showing the depth of which you can, that you've got these creative insights. And that's only going to grow. Like you are creative once, you're going to be creative tomorrow. Your creativity just builds on itself. It's like you've had this great idea and there's more to come. You're going to have tons of great ideas. But version 1.0 is that core truth of your story that if it never came out, then you would be skipping past all of that stuff in an effort to reach version 24. You would be skipping past the loyal customers, that solid customer base, that community foundation that builds everything else, that builds a referral-based business, for that matter. The loyal fandom, right? Like you're going to be missing that because you didn't spend the time to discover like who your audience was. By first you recognizing like yourself in the story, because you're unfolding, like it's still probably, version 5.0 or 6 that you're still kind of discovering things about yourself, and you're going to continue to discover things about yourself. You're just going to not only be doing it alone. But I don't know. I think this is advice that's worked for me as a perfectionist, always wanting to put out like the best of the best. But I mean, so this, YouTube channel, it's just, it's just, what I can do right now. It's not the best sound equipment or lighting kit or, camera. It's none of that. And I've got to be okay with that. On a daily basis, I have to remind myself that, we all start somewhere. We all start somewhere. Don't get on my case. I'm not going to get on my case if I can't keep up with the speed at which everyone else is like, updating their thumbnails. And, I just have to do the best that I can. I have to do the best that I can. I believe in what I'm doing. And that's what your success hinges on. You believing in what you're doing, because I've seen it before I made this pivot in my business, and being on YouTube, starting on YouTube is a major pivot in my business because I was a blogger before. Now I'm kind of just turning my blog into, YouTube episodes. And that is like so I've seen the success that comes about from myself, and I'll speak for myself, not only myself, but I do see it in others and people who I'm coaching, I see the transformation. I see it in other people across the board, everything from them revealing the start of their book and what it was born from and how they came upon this idea. And now it's a best-selling New York Times bestseller, you know. So we see it all the time. We see them putting in the reps, we putting in the time, putting in the belief, and gathering the community base that wants to go along for the ride. And it's happened before, and I know it'll happen again. And so this is just trusting the process, right? Trusting myself in this process every day is going to be a new challenge because I'm evolving, I'm growing, you know, I'm going to want to grow faster than than the algorithm wants me to. You know, I'm going to struggle with those thoughts of feeling like, oh gosh, you know, more of this, or this is tough. And that is a sign of, well, okay, this is my first hire. And so I got AI on board, and now AI is helping me edit. And that's a big deal. Cutting out a lot of the workflow from the editing process is a big deal. Some people have teleprompters for their video channels. I think I love that idea. Because think of how much you can record without having to like worry about the editing. If you're just riffing, you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to cut that out and da, da, da. It's just like, no, I'm just saying exactly what I know I'm gonna say because I'm reading off the teleprompter, versus just kind of riffing in your videos and having a heck of a time editing all the crap out and trying to like make sense of it. Like these clarity hotlines. No, I'm kidding. At least we have like at least on these clarity hotlines, we have the questions to kind of keep us in some type of succinct order, chronological. There's a lot of time reference today on this clarity hotline. Thanks for the question about time management, all on my entrepreneur moms. I recognize the time, and so I probably won't get so much more on the mental load since we're out of time, but I did kind of like touch on it. But I will end with just reminding you that if you're stuck at the starting line, your version 1.0 has to come out before version 24 ever could. And version 50, right? And think about the people who are in the limelight, and they are probably version 1000.0, you know, 0.001. Like they got some reps in before we're seeing them and knowing anything about them. They got some reps in because the environment you're building with your version 1.0 and 2.0 and 3.0 and the community who knows, likes, and trusts you, all of that is backing up and supporting the claim that when somebody stumbles upon you and sees your work, that you are who you say you are. And that all matters, right? And so imagine if you skipped past 1.0 in an effort to try to look like 24.0, and you miss all the people that would have been part of your growth and be the people who won't let you down or that are going to support you. You got to find those people that are going to make sure you win, right? Because if you win, they win. They see themselves in you. And if you can do it, I can do it. And that kind of thing, right? There's this camaraderie. And think about that. That's powerful stuff. That's powerful stuff. And any origin story, you're always going to see that there was somebody who believed in the vision too. There's not just the visionary, there's the people who believe in it with them. And you got to find your people. So put out your version 1.0. You're really just talking to you in that version 1.0. Just put it out there and see what you're all about. You got to meet yourself too. And so if this will help you, I hope it does. Just take that big, bold, courageous step into putting out your version 1.0. You don't even have to share it. Maybe it's a blog post that you never send the link out or promote, but it's just living out there, which is actually a good way. And I think a lot of ways people do start and they get kind of jazzed by the success of their blog. And blogs are still a thing nowadays, guys. You know, they're seeing the success of their blog, and then all the other ideas start percolating, and it's like, okay, I can turn this into something. It's more than just me writing versions 1 and 2.0. Like, I'm actually going somewhere with this, it's catching wind. Catching fire? Catching fire. Okay, so I think that's, oh yeah, okay, so I did write this to her. So, when we're invested in these beginning stories, no matter how many times you're a beginner, don't trip on that. We're a beginner constantly. We're beginner moms. We're beginner students. We're a beginner in learning how to cook. We're beginners in learning how to ride a bike. We're beginners in our businesses when we're starting a business, when we're launching something into the world. We're beginners, right? There's always a level of new growth where you are now the beginner again. So get used to that. Get used to that. But the good thing about being a beginner and embodying the seed of a beginner and embracing that as like, okay, whoa, I get to be a beginner again and like learn and grow and recognize strengths in myself that I didn't know I had. And, I'm not a seasoned veteran here, so I don't think I know it all. I'm open to honest feedback and I want to improve, right? That's a beautiful place to be. When you're invested in something like that and you're present to that, you can look fondly back on these days. You're going to look fondly back on them. They're going to be the most beautiful thing in the world. It'll be stressful. You'll look back and be like, cringe, gross. And it'll, remind you of all the really stressful moments, just like it did in motherhood when it was really stressful and he wouldn't stop crying and he wouldn't take the boob and he wouldn't, latch. And it was just this hard, really delicate time. But then, you look back and you're like, okay, we made it through that. And he's my little warrior. And this is all your story. Your version 1.0s all along the way is your story. And so I just hope that you don't forget that. Okay. Big love. Submit your questions at clarityhotline.com. That's a wrap for us today. Thanks for being on. All right. Oh yeah, and just so you know, if you're interested in the Presence and Profit Playbook that I'm making for my entrepreneur moms, comment below playbook, and I will send that your way once it's finalized. Okay. Peace. Thanks, fam. All right, YouTube. We out. See you next week.